By now, I hope everybody knows that not all the games that LJN produced on the NES were bad, and since that hopefully is out of the way, I'd like to take a look at a game that I think is my favorite LJN published game on the NES. So let's take a look at the first video game outing by Marvel's quintessential vigilante character. But first, how about a little backstory? The Punisher is Frank Castle, an ex-Marine driven mad by the deaths of his wife and children. He decides to take justice into his own hands and hit the streets with a cache of firearms impressive enough to make any NRA member aroused. He is a skilled marksman, highly proficient in the martial arts and survival techniques. The Punisher made his comic book debut in 1974's Amazing Spider-Man numbered 129. Since then, he has appeared in countless comics, 3 films, animation, television, and of course, video games. Counting the modified Game Boy port of this game, he has been the star of 6 video games over the years. This game is an on-rail shooter developed by Australian company Beam Software. In this, you control the titular anti-hero as he unleashes showers of lead upon the punks and thugs in this game's version of New York City. Shooting up the backgrounds and buildings can find you hints in the forms of copies of the Daily Bugle newspaper, power-ups in the form of weapon, armor, and health upgrades, as well as other bonuses. Sometimes you can even find bonus areas with even more power-ups and bonuses. Each stage has 2 levels and a boss battle at the end, with the exception of the final stage, which has 3. Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, it should be, but everybody is trying to kill you. Every last thug is packing heat and you're on the top of their hit list. It may be tempting to just attempt to mow everybody down with a continuous spread of gunfire, but short bursts are optimal, especially since your ability to fire rapidly depends on your ammo count. You can't actually run out of ammo, but when you go down to 1, your gun will only deliver a slow single shot, so conserve ammo when you can. The levels at the different stages are rather repetitive with only a handful of unique settings. A city street, a dock, a subway station, a sewer, a prison, a warehouse, and an office building. The action within the stages and the variety of enemies you encounter are largely the same with a few standouts. Most of the time you encounter the same blue-clad, mohawk-wearing thugs, purple-suited mobsters, or mercenaries in fatigues. Mixing up the repetitive nature of the stages are the boss battles, which do have a little bit of variety to them. Some attack in vehicles, which will incrementally show damage, and others mix things up with ranged attacks and melee. Do your best to avoid getting hit with these melee attacks at all costs, as many of these do a ton of damage. Keep moving and deliver a quick punch or kick with caution. Stick and move, just like a boxer. You especially don't want to get clobbered by Kingpin's double axe handle. Frank can only take a couple of these, even with full body armor. Visually, the game is pretty decent. Not the best, but it is good. Some of the stuff in the backgrounds are kind of hard to discern, especially in the street scenes, which use a much darker color scheme than the others, but aside from that, it's not too terribly difficult to tell what's going on at any given time. The sound, like the visuals, are good, but there isn't really too much to it. There aren't any music in the levels except for when the saxophone player appears, and if you played the game you already know what I'm talking about here. The saxophone player is an innocent bystander who appears in the game laying down a bluesy riff seemingly out of nowhere, and if he gets caught in the crossfire, you'll lose a significant chunk of health. Anyway, back to the music and sound of this game, and the game is largely barren of music, and the bulk of the game's sound effects are gunshots, which are not the best, even by NES standards. Perhaps it does sound like I'm running down the game a little bit, but truth be told, on the NES you can do a hell of a lot worse. Personally, I've always found this game to be pretty fun, but mainly in short doses. If you're a fan of superhero games and you haven't, this one might be worth a look. Hope you've enjoyed this review. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.